Onion Cycles podcast is about thought provoking, emotion evoking, action driven, step by step guidance to explore the unique, glorious, and wonderful ocean of your being. Because healing is a multi layered process of getting to know oneself. Become the self empowered empiric researcher by discovering the unique layers of your existence. With your host, Nadine Alma, welcome to the Holistic Healing Hub. Welcome to the Onion Cycles podcast.
Hello and welcome back, my beloved fellow healing, integrating onions. I am honored, I am blessed, I am grateful that you decided to tune in again and spend your time, your efforts, your energies here on this podcast. A warm welcome to the Onion Cycles podcast, a warm welcome to the Holistic Healing Hub. To all of those new here, this is a space where we open up, where we have space and time, a place for our vulnerability to really go deep within ourselves, to get to know ourselves, to investigate, to become self empiric researchers. Because in the end, you will live with yourself your whole life. You are in the longest relationship you will ever have with yourself. And the healthier that relationship is, the better you know yourself, the better you will feel, and the better the wholer, the more magical your life will get. So, we are doing this podcast under the flag of as I think, so I feel, so I act. So, right from the top, right at the beginning of this episode, I wanted to explain the concept because, as you may or may not yet know, there is a worksheet available on my website for a free download. On that worksheet, you will have all the notes containing everything that we talked about in each episode. And as I think, so I feel, so I act. That is where the magic happens. That is where true change will inevitably come into your life, bring change to your life, will make things seem, appear, be different. So the action part is also part of the worksheet. Each worksheet contains exercises. These are exercises that will challenge you, that will go deep, that will dig deeper into the essence of what we talked about, with the sole purpose of opening up an opportunity for you to make each episode personal, intimate, so that you can take the most away from the episode itself. And as we have learned so far, we know that it is a personal journey, it is an individual journey. There is no one out there knowing yourself better than you can yourself. So I would say if that resonates with you, if it feels in alignment with what you want to do with this podcast, you can download these worksheets on my website for free www.wonderfinder.org. It's everything down in the description as well. And without further ado, we start into story 36, episode 37, Contemplation, part 3. So, the past 8 months have gone by, and every now and then we stopped and we took a breath and we contemplated, we reflected, because it is one thing to take in every week and do the exercises and never look back and miss out on the opportunity to really explore what helped me, what tools, what podcast episode stuck with me, what did I take away from it, what was important to me, what can I discard, what can I let go, what didn't serve me as it should have served me. And contemplation in itself is very important too, because it enables us not only to see what did serve us and what didn't, but also give us a little bit of time, a little bit of breathing, a little bit of a break, a little bit of a relaxation, regeneration, if you want. We did two contemplations already. Each of those contemplations came after a hot topic, as I would call it. So the first contemplation discussed the basics for a common understanding, a common language, so that when we talk about stuff and use certain terms, certain phrases, we all know what is meant by that. We started Contemplation 1 by reflecting on the very first episode, clarity, change, curiosity, and consistency, and why it is important to implement all four of these into our lives from the get go. We then took a dive into gratitude, breathing exercises. We contemplated the me in others, in our beautiful episode called Sonder. We talked about the traffic lights paradigm, how it feels and how it actually discloses itself when we come from a high feeling into lower moods, into downs, so called, what the process might look like, how we can ascertain where we're at, and what we can do and what we can learn from that. We then got into accountability, basically being the self empiric master of your own sail and self empowered in deciding that everything I choose to take account for, I can then transform into what it means to me and for me. In other words, life happens to me. No, life happens for me. So then we dove into rituals and routines and looked at stuff from a more daily life implementation perspective. Like, how does making changes, especially the small ones, the consistent small changes, how do they affect me? So this first segment of our year together was solely concerned with building a common language and understanding of the things that we dive deeper in, the things that we will use in our terminology. And then we dove into the second part of our year together with building a relationship with self, with us. And Contemplation 2 dove into especially the Art of Love series, where we sort of explored the core of what it means to be human, like the core of us humans, the core of humanity, in my personal opinion, is love. So, how do we approach love? And where does that notion come from that we don't need to learn anything about love? What is there to learn about love? And how can it affect ourselves, our environment, and the world at large if we commit to giving a bit of ourselves to the study of the art of love? And from there, we went into minimalism, asking the questions: what is important to me? What matters really to me? And what is the access? What can go? What can I let go? What doesn't serve me anymore? And then meditation, because all of what we discuss wouldn't be able to come to fruition without silencing the voices in our head, without quieting the mind to really hear, to really feel intuition, to really get to know and build a relationship with that inner voice, that calling out, that calling that is within us that we often can't hear because our voices in our heads are so strong. And because it is important to discern what kind of voices these are, what is intuition, we then did the Four Bodies series, trying to understand what else affects us. Because we are more than just our physical bodies, we are more than just physicality. We are outlining the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical body, and we're trying to understand their interconnectedness and how to approach the building of a relationship with our four bodies, how to even discern the difference between feeling each and every one of them. So the whole second part of our year was from the building of the common language, then based on building a relationship with self. We arrived at Contemplation 3, all about building a relationship with the humanness, that innate humanness that we live through. Because after all, once we build the language to understand each other and then start building a relationship with ourselves and with the different arts and kinds of selves and understand them truly, we then are able to have the the vocabulary to dive into what does it really mean to be human? What are we all about? We are contemplating the last months that we spent on this very topic. So first, we discovered joie de vie, the joy of life. And we talked about stoicism. We talked about how stoicism is often misunderstood as not feeling at all, when in fact it really just explores how can we not be governed by our emotions and feelings? How can we feel them, live through them, take the best with us from them, learn, grow, and thrive with and from them, but then also not mistake them for being there always and defining who we are. Because in the end, eudaimonia means that happiness is a direction and not an end destination. We tackled the topic of procrastination. We discern that there is consequential and inconsequential procrastination. There is a difference between not being able to do the dishes for 3 days and staying in a destructive relationship, be it in the job or romantically, for 3 years or more, that has the cause and effect of destroying your happiness and your fulfillment, right? We then also discussed how procrastination can be viewed from several different standpoints, as well as a spiritual one, and how it is all about calming the nervous system and then interrupting the pattern to be able to, at some point, integrate and heal the trauma that stands behind that procrastination as a coping mechanism. So it's all about feeling it, going through it, and then maybe go back to the emotional body podcast episode that guides you through Teal Swan's approach on how to actually integrate the emotional body that has been hurt that caused procrastination. Now, procrastination then served as the step to the Being Human series. The Being Human series was all about the discovery that there are certain components, the seven powers of wrath. So these seven components are not contained within all of us in equal measure, but in some way or form, they are all present. We discovered darkness, synonym sort of to depression. We discovered desire, which we also covered quite a few times with the so-called if-then trap. Like, we make our joy and our contentment only approachable if we attain something in the future. So it will always be a jog, a marathon run to get to where we want to be, when in fact it is all about integrating it into the now and feeling it in the now and getting this feeling within the now. We also discovered ignorance, the difference between we can only see so much that is valuable, but then the unconscious states we fall into and act from that are not valuable. We discovered the so called seal for death with the unconscious suicide, that every choice that endangers our longevity or health is and comprises of. It's access that is never the answer, and balance that is the key. We discovered the realm of the flesh. It can be a triumph to really be lustful and really squeeze out every inch of life. Oh, live life to the fullest. And then also not forget that we are also souls and energies and spiritual beings. So we sort of need to see that we are not just our bodies. We then came to the foolish wisdom of the flesh, discovering that some of our coping mechanisms, some of our vices, are nothing else but having the body be a scapegoat for it. It's sort of like a reluctance to do what's actually good for us, which is also rooted in the patterns that we live out, because our brain will always choose the known over the unknown, even if the known is uncomfortable and even if the known causes pain. So we sort of discover that the foolish wisdom of the flesh somehow and in some ways is connected to the seal for death, when in fact all of those seven components are interconnected in some sort of way. We then also discovered the foolish wisdom of the wrathful person. We remember the statement by the comedian Hannah Gadsby saying, "I have a right to be angry, but I have not a right to spread it." And from there, we took a dive into discovering anger as a feeling, as an emotion. Because anger can be healing, it can be uniting. If you're standing up for a cause and if you're standing up for what you know is right, it is sort of like an emotional immune system that needs to be heard, that wants to be heard, that tells us how some of our boundaries have been violated and we need to stand up for ourselves. But it's the being stuck within anger and being attached to anger and getting bitter about it and getting wrathful that causes then pain. So from the Being Human series and diving in all those different seven components, we then went into regeneration, because I found it very refreshing to look at regeneration from a different angle, and from the point of view that there are different ways and forms of how we can regenerate ourselves. There is emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, social, sensory, and creative regeneration, and every single one of them can be attaining a more fulfilled life when we understand ourselves better, when we learn about these forms of regeneration. That opens up a portal, that opens up a door, that then enables us to see, what do we actually need? No, we don't need to sit down on the sofa and watch Netflix for a whole day today. What we actually need is maybe a hike. What we actually need might be just turning off every device and just be with ourselves and our thoughts and meditate. Or maybe we need to express ourselves more and just start creating something for the sake of creating. And from regeneration, we then went once more into redefining happiness. I am aware that joie de vivre, the joy of life, and redefining happiness are in one way or another similar, but they're not the same. And I thought such a concept that is so overloaded with so much things from so many people, and so much has been written and said about it, is happiness, that we need to discuss that once more from a different angle. So we discussed in more depth the if then trap. We asked, what are the quote unquote right questions? And how can we get comfortable with the only constant in life, that is change, that then enables us to see that everything that we need is already residing within us. And a fun thing on the side was the 4 a day, the new 4 a day, all that you need, four hormones, four different kinds of hormones that all induce a form of happiness, being dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And I found that to be a lovely thing to do, to try and have a day where you dedicate time to finding all of those four hormones in your to-do list. And as we discovered, dopamine is sort of something like eating good food or getting enough sleep or completing a task. And oxytocin is playing with animals or children, giving a compliment, be of service of some kind, holding hands, cuddling, hugging, all those things that are centered around connection with others. And then serotonin, being in nature, getting still, becoming quiet, meditation, mindfulness, getting some sun, and just really coming back to your center, to yourself. And then endorphins. Ooh, exercise, laughing, watching a funny movie, and creating for the sake of creating. And all of those four dedicated to happiness as a means to a deeply personal path of finding what makes you happy, what is unknown to some, and what may be known to you specifically. Happiness is a gift available to us every day if we know ourselves. We then, from redefining happiness once more, dove into the present because it is so important to discover how often we are stuck in our head. We disconnect from others and from there just leave the magic that is life behind, because it is about being present that then enables us to see where the magic lies, right? And then last week we had emotions and feelings, all of this culminating this circle that we had in this third block, culminating in emotions and feelings, covering the five basic emotions and discovering that there is a spectrum to all of them, and landing at the questions to ask, to feel, but not be governed by them. And also discovered right back to where we started, to the joy of life, to stoicism, making the full circle to knowing that the difference between emotions and feelings, and how to be the master of your own sail. Now, that is a lot to take in. That is a beautiful journey that we took there. I'm quite happy we arrived at Contemplations 3 and just took a little bit of time to refresh our memory of the journey we went through. Just go through all of these weeks, these months of self discovery, take a deep breath, and recall what did actually serve you, what can you let go, and prepare to start in the very last circle of this year together with a clear mind, clarity in front of you, and ready to take charge again and be courageous to dive into getting to know yourself with specific tools that we will discover over the course of the next few weeks. And with all of that said, my beloved fellow healing integrating onions, I am so proud. I am so happy. I hope you can hear that in my voice right through the microphone, right to you, how grateful and happy I am we are at this last stage. The past, yeah, 3 quarters nearly of this year were astonishing, surprising, challenging, indulging, exhilarating, everything good and bad and everything in between. And I hope that every episode of every week did help you in some form, way, or another. And that what I brought to the table in this content that I create was able to spark something within you that helps you, aids you, assists you in this great work that you're doing. There's nothing more important than to integrate, than to heal yourself, than to become the full whole version that is you, because it is so important that you're here. You matter so much. And whenever you dim your light, know that your light might have actually made the difference for someone else, the way someone else might have made a difference with their light to you. So, my loves, all the very best for this next week. And I wish you, from my heart to yours, all the love and light. And may you get everything you need a pinch of what you want. See you next week, my beloved fellow healing integrating onions.